It's kind of funny. Like, I really wonder what Harry Viner would have made of the political situation today, because he was like the first guy in Medicine Hat to build a greenhouse. I don't recall if they built them out in Red Cliff first, but Harry was the first one to build one in Medicine Hat. And so when people are talking about hail and solar panels, I think he would laugh in their face. He seemed like that kind of guy.
This episode of Bring Back the Porch, brought to you by Bernie Leahy, River Street Realty. Let's get you home. And joining me on the porch this time is Kaleb Orge. Hey, candidate for Medicinehat City Council.
Yes, I am.
Why?
Well, it started a bunch of years ago with the city council before this one. When the previous council was investigating the idea of selling the power plant, like a lot of people, I got absolutely furious, right? It was absolutely a zero, like, no, not going to happen. But at the time, I was just a guy sitting at home, I didn't feel ready. So I spent the last 4 years, just on a self-improvement kick, trying to be the kind of person I'd want to vote for. And so when this election came around, I kind of guessed how things were going to go, right? Because we went from a very contentious election through our first female majority council. There was going to be this sort of kickback, like there was after the Obama administration in the States, where people would want to, return to normal, or would want to go away from such a forward-leaning direction. And so I knew that it was the best time ever for a mediocre white man to run for city council. And it looks like I was right, because we got 39 candidates running in this election. And a wide field like that also gives, the dark horse candidate a chance to kind of slip up the middle, right? And that's why I made my joke that I'm running for 8th place.
I was going to ask you about that. Everybody wants to be number one. They have those foam fingers that say number one. Your slogan should be, I want to be number 8.
Well, it is. I just wish I could afford the signs.
Or the foam fingers.
Oh, I would pass out the foam fingers in a heartbeat. I just don't know anyone that makes them. I made a joke during the candidate forum for the Chamber of Commerce. Sorry, Brian, referring to Brian Varga. I did not know at the time 100% that he'd run 5 times before, won twice, and come in 9th 3 times. I found out about that shortly before we went up there. And I would just like to say, I'm sorry, Brian, if you took that personally. I thought it was funny. I hope that doesn't put you off. And if you beat me, you are entirely allowed to make fun of me for 4 years.
Nana, boo, boo.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. You have a political hero from what I've been reading, and that is a very familiar name to Medicine Hatters, former Mayor Harry Viner.
Yes. It's kind of funny. Like, I really wonder what Harry Viner would have made of the political situation today, because he was like the first guy in Medicine Hat to build a greenhouse. I don't recall if they built them out in Red Cliff first, but Harry was the first one to build one in Medicine Hat. And so when people are talking about hail and solar panels, I think he would laugh in their face. He seemed like that kind of guy. And he was a big, colorful character, right? And so that's why when I started doing stand-up a few years ago to get over fear of public speaking, learn to write material, learn to improvise, I looked to, some of the stunts that got into the newspaper with him. He would always challenge somebody to a foot race. He got us the Goodyear plant by like literally walking into the office and just being like, so how do I steal this from the town you're planning on building it in? And, I could be that guy. I don't have an extensive history in governance. I'm the first one to admit that. I'm running for 8th place, right? But if Medicine Hat needs a booster, if Medicine Hat needs a guy to go out there, and especially if Medicine Hat needs a guy to just say, hey, something's not right here, right? I'll take that hit for the rest of council. I will absolutely be the one to say the quiet part out loud so that we can do a good job without it falling back on people who might be, afraid about the re-election campaign. Because I am almost certainly a oneer. I know it in my heart of hearts.
A oneer?
Yeah, that guy who gets elected once, then goes, my job is done, and disappears off into the sunset like a samurai.
One-hit wonder.
Yeah, I expect it to go that way for me, if elected at all, because, that'll just be my job, is to check everybody's work and throw spitballs, right?
Class clown.
Yeah, well, not just. I mean, the purpose there is so that, like, the people who are, who are diverting their attention have to look back, but not because they're mad, not because they're angry that this thing happened or that thing happened, but because they're like genuinely entertained for a minute and they want to see what happens next. And then maybe they learn something along the way.
You have been doing your homework, I understand. You have been looking at our city's finances, which is something that a lot of people have been talking about, but haven't really had any real numbers. But you have found some real numbers.
Oh, come on. Don't act like I didn't tell you about this email like 5 minutes ago. So what happened was before the candidate forum, I'd heard about Drew Barnes and the group of candidates he's running with all campaigning on 3 years of 0% property tax increases. And I'm like, inflation is a thing. How long would it take before we ran out of our reserves? And so I'm piecing it together. I don't have a background in finance either, but I was interested to learn. And I wound up emailing City Finance Director Lola Barta after asking around at City Hall a bit. And so I sent this email after she clarified just what the $750 million in reserves are. Mm-hmm. And I said, thank you for the clarification, Lola. I do have one additional question. Because Drew Barnes and several council candidates are running on a promise of a 3-year freeze on property tax increases, I'd like help understanding what would happen if future councils continue this policy indefinitely. I understand there are countless variables to consider and that such an estimate would be off by whole orders of magnitude. What I'm looking for is a basic back-of-the-envelope style Fermi estimate. Can you please provide any kind of estimate on how long our reserves will last and what sort of end state the city's budget would be in if property taxes are never increased again? Mm-hmm. She got back to me.
Ooh, that looks like a lot of writing.
It's just one page.
Oh, okay. Single spaced.
Yeah. She, I love Lola. Like, she does her work so well. And it's like, you know, anyone who really pays attention to her really needs to race to catch up because, well, just listen. Good morning, Mr. Orge. There are several important factors that must be considered to conduct a thorough analysis. So at this time, I'm providing a high-level overview. By legislation, municipalities are not permitted to run deficits. While they can use reserves, brackets, savings, brackets, to cover shortfalls, this is not a sustainable long-term strategy. To ensure ongoing financial stability, municipalities must budget responsibly and avoid relying on reserves indefinitely. Ideally, property taxes should be adjusted regularly to keep pace with inflation and to meet operational needs. Best practices also recommend allocating a portion of property tax revenue toward capital infrastructure requirements.
Take a breath. Caleb's operating with a cold, too, so...
Yeah, I've been down for like 3 or 4 days, and I got to get back into it. So please hit up my Facebook page.
So we were talking about the letter, the clarification from Lola regarding our city finances and the temptation to use reserves.
And I'm really curious how this is all going to shape up in editing. Let's see. Ideally, property taxes should be adjusted regularly to keep pace with inflation and to meet operational needs. Best practices also recommend allocating a portion of property tax revenue toward capital infrastructure requirements. The city is currently facing a number of financial challenges, including declining energy revenues, missed property tax increases during the pandemic, reduced funding from other levels of government, increasing capital requirements, and a historic budget deficit, brackets, gap, bracket. In 2025, the city has a budget deficit, brackets, gap, bracket, of $11.1 million, which is being covered by the reserves. This means we're continuing to rely on reserves, brackets, savings brackets, to fund municipal operations as current revenues are insufficient to support existing service levels. Without increases to property taxes or new sources of revenue, the city will be forced to reduce, cut, or eliminate services. Additionally, increased reliance on reserves limits our ability to maintain existing infrastructure or invest in new capital projects. While freezing property taxes may seem appealing, it raises a critical question. How do we continue to fund essential services and infrastructure maintenance? Without adequate investment, our roads, sidewalks, trails, buildings, and amenities like parks, pools, and rinks will deteriorate. Furthermore, we may be unable to retain essential services such as policing, which could lead to increased crime. Ultimately, this would make it more difficult to attract new residents and businesses to the city, potentially leading to further economic decline. A well-maintained, safe, and vibrant community is essential for long-term prosperity, and I couldn't agree with her more. Here is a very simple calculation. The city has approximately $35 million in operating reserves available to cover operating shortfalls. If there are no property tax increases, no service reductions, and no dividends from energy, these reserves would be depleted in about 2 years.
2 years.
Yeah, from the city's finance director, 2 years. The plan is a 3-year freeze from these guys, right? This estimate assumes we do not draw from other reserves such as capital, abandonment, energy transition, or the endowment fund.
So we don't borrow from other funds.
Yeah, if we don't rob Peter to pay Paul, and if we don't cut services, it's 2 years, not 3, right? I would suggest that you review the material for candidates as available on the city website. Here's the link. It's long. I'm not going to read the whole thing out. The 2025-2026 budget document provides a great overview of the city's financials and the plan to balance its budget. Here's the link, and it's the 2025-2026 budget briefing, gfoa.pdf. I've actually tried to wade through it a few times myself and teach myself how to read it. And then I hope this helps Lola.
It does not paint a very good picture of the future of our city, and the future of our city is going to be in the hands of the next council. So if you're sitting around the council and they want to freeze our taxes without cutting expenses, what are you going to contribute to that argument?
Well, my understanding is that Drew is running with a minimum of 3 other people, right? I'm sure he's got a 4th and a 5th there to make sure he's got his bases covered in a majority. If they all get in, there's nothing I can do, right? They can treat the city as much like a piggy bank if they want, right? But that's why one of my other big taglines, in addition to being the 8th choice, is that people should use all 8 of their votes. I've had a lot of conversations, and I've had some weird pushback on Facebook about that, right? People are thinking about, well, I want this guy to get in, right? So if I put this guy and then like 7 other people, I'm basically doing this guy and 7 votes against that guy, right? But hang on a minute, right? If you have 4, 5, 6, or 8 people that you want to see get in, right? Maybe you don't get your number 1 favorite, but you could get 6, 7, 8. The bracket for getting into the 8th place in city council is like 25 or 26% of the vote, right? Because so many people leave the bottom half of their ticket empty. And that bottom half of the ticket represents a huge opportunity for a slate like, or team like Barnes is running to get in and control half of council because people didn't care about the bottom half of the ticket. And so, you know, with 39 people, even if we top the all-time, well, I don't know if it was the all-time record, but last time it was up 40% at 20,000 people. Even if we top that, dividing it among 39 people, and with a lot of people leaving, you know, half or more of their voice on the table, there's a good chance that like small players like me or this elements of this team could get in, whether we want them to or not, right? So more than ever, it is vitally important that we vote for everything, right? One of my other slogans is, if we can't do better than chance, we don't deserve the job. And, you know, that's a scary thought of like, well, what happens if, you know, everybody just picked at random and like somebody happened to get in who wasn't as qualified as somebody else you wanted? Well, hang on for a minute, right? If everybody's picking the choices they want and filling up the card, then they're deliberately leaving out the people they don't want on council, right? And one mistake is better than like 4 people slipping through because we didn't post any sentries, right? Mm-hmm. That's why I'm running for 8th place. It's the same vote as everyone, including the mayor, but it's the easiest bar to cross, right? And so, like, for those of you out there who are thinking I'm, you know, nuts and don't want me in there, you need to vote against me 8 times, right? I don't care if it's for other people. You need to vote against me for 8 times if you're not planning on voting for me, because, come on, if you voted against me 7 times and I got in, you'd be just as mad, maybe madder.
Mm-hmm. An interesting way to look at it. How's that message being received when you're out campaigning?
I've been going to a ton of candidate events because with 39 people running, I made the decision, well, I can't afford signs and I can do as much door knocking as I want. I can post on Facebook as much as I want, but the best people to probably campaign to are the other candidates because they're all interested and active enough that they wanted to do something for the city. And each one of them, like me, needed to get 25 people to sign a form saying that they were willing to run for council. So I was campaigning to them, and I'll continue campaigning to them and everyone else I meet because, the goal is 8th place. I'm aiming for a manageable bar here. I didn't choose to be mayor for a reason.
When you think about running for city council and you talk to the other candidates, have you been able to learn from them?
a lot of them, like the majority of them, are the same situation I am. They're concerned people who come from a walk of life in the community, and they bring with them their values, their point of view, and their belief in what would make the city better, or at least make their lives and the lives of the people they know better. And I have to respect that, right? We all have different levels of experience. Some of us know more about finance. Some of us know more about, oh goodness. Some of us know more about finance. Some of us know more about governance. Some of us know more about how to appear in public. Some of us are really good at presenting ourselves. One thing I find impressive about Drew Barnes is, I don't know if he keeps it on cards or if he just has a brain like a steel trap, but he will remember your name, stuff about your family, and he will shake your hand and he will pay attention to you, even if he's not making direct eye contact, right? That is a great skill. And that is probably one of the biggest reasons why he was an MLA for as long as he was, right? And it would serve him well in municipal politics, right? It's just, I don't happen to agree with him on the tax freeze and other elements of policy, right? I'm sure there's a million other things we can agree on, right?
When it comes to things like property taxes, we pretty well covered that. But what about utility rates?
I'm a renter, and I live on a fixed income. I have a disability, and so I live on that. Comedy is something I can do because I have a reliable source of income, because comedy is a very poorly paying thing.
Like radio, yeah.
I know. Look at what you've become. You have your own studio, kind of. But yeah, everything is small and fragmented, right? And so for me, like, yeah, the fact that when you add all the inflation up over the last 5 years, it comes to 20% is brutal. It's utterly brutal. But the city's paying that on the other end because it has to pay for wage increases. The longer it puts off capital expenses and repairs and that sort of thing, the more expensive it gets, because every other company has to deal with inflation too, right? So the issue is that, like, I used a metaphor in the Chamber of Commerce debates, right? Comco's a dragon, right?
Comco, yes.
Yes, our city energy utility, right? It's a dragon that keeps us cold in summer and brings us gold in winter, right? Because that's actually how it shakes out. By providing our own electricity, we can provide it at a subsidized cost when we use it the most. And then in winter, everything we sell onto the grid, when they're using electric heaters up north, we bring that money back through electricity sales to the grid. We have to let the dragon eat. I don't care if, as I put it, it has a nuclear heart or wings of solar, or if it keeps breathing fire, right? But we have to let the dragon eat. And I know, because I'm at that bottom end of the income ladder, how hard it's going to hit. And I've had several visits to the root cellar, and 4,000 people a month in Medicine Hat, a city of 6,000 people, use the root cellar. 1 in 16 already. 11,000 different children have used the root cellar in the last year, right? Raising utility costs will cause more people to need more assistance. It will threaten some people's ability to keep food over their head. But what's the alternative in the long term if that dragon, dies, right? If we go broke there, or if we have to sell it off, we completely lose our ability to choose when to make a profit and when not to. I think we're reaching a point where our hand is being forced. $500 million in capital investment that will only get more expensive the longer we put it off. We have to address that. We have to let we have to let Comco be a company that runs a profit, that's able to maintain its costs and handle things like oil well mitigation. And then the city side of it, right? You have to also wear the city councillor cap and be like, okay, so what can the city do to offset and fix this other problem, right? And for that, again, like, no, I don't think anybody sane is expecting a 3-year 0% tax increase, because, like, the director of finance has said, 2 will remove our operating savings that previous generations have put in there, and then our hand is forced, right? So maybe smaller tax increases, maybe we just get up to inflation where it should be, and then we keep it there. It's hard choices. But the big one is, obviously, these hard choices are going to fall on people like me the hardest. And I would love to be on council when it's happening, because, you know, guys in my position, we have to pay our bills, because if our credit card bill gets too high, if we wind up falling behind, then that fixed income doesn't go as far. We wind up having to pay off the interest as well as the original cost. And I think the city's hands is getting forced. I think we're reaching a point where, you know, we're just compounding our problems unless we deal with them. And right along with the interest, right? Compounding our problems. And so the city will need to take steps to deal with the increased cost for the people on the bottom. It will make it harder for people at the higher end of the property spectrum and business owners to do their things. So we will need to do things like cut red tape. We will need to find what savings we can after Councillor Hirsch spent 3 terms doing Financially Fit, right? Which is another thing, right? Like anyone who talks about cutting waste, we had a guy doing that for 12 years. Right? How much more can you cut? It's time to start taking fingers if you want to think that way. I don't want that. But at the same time, I want a vibrant, growing community. And so that means that we're going to have to look at removing the stuff that gets in the way of people making money and paying their taxes.
How do we bring in more business then? Because that's the other side of the equation. If you broaden the tax assessment base, then you have some more money to do other things.
Unfortunately, my lifetime experience is mostly playing huge God-level strategy games like Hearts of Iron Civilization and the big complex simulators. So they always treat population growth as an abstract. They always treat the consumer economy largely as an abstract. It's not my area of expertise. I took 2 economics courses in college, and I disagreed with both of them. But one thing I do understand is that we've got 3 people running this election who came to Medicine Hat and started local businesses, right? Medicine Hat constantly has people coming here to retire because the cost of living in other cities is more expensive, right? And those people, when they come here, they're going to want and need stuff, right? Which creates an opportunity for other people to start businesses to give them that stuff. It creates an opportunity to hire employees and grow the municipal economy. I do not know at this time how to bring a big anchor business to Medicine Hat, right? I don't mind if the city bends over for business, but I want them to respect us in the morning, if you know what I mean.
Okay.
Right? Yeah. Like a lot of stories about Amazon and whatnot, they extract so many concessions out of cities that the city never turns a profit over having the fulfillment center there, and then they just mill through the entire community's workforce. And I do not want that for Medicine Hat. I don't want that for us, but I do want a big employer to come to Medicine Hat. And for that, we need an available labor force. And
a place for them to live.
Yes. Thank you for steering me out of my endless spiral. The big one for me is housing. It's the one I understand because I've been saving money toward a down payment for years now. And you know, the closer I get, the further it goes away. And because my income is so limited, I don't just need 5% down. I need like 17% down to qualify for the loan, right? And that's all contingent on the provincial government not just taking $200 out of, what I get paid every month if they feel like it, right? And I have no control over that. I'm sure a lot of people in Medicine Hat who are on assistance or who have retired feel that feeling and feel that pain. So affordable housing is a big deal for me, and housing at any bracket, because the people who can afford it more will buy it as long as it's there, even if it's intended for to be more affordable, right? Which is part of that whole rising tide of property values, which incidentally is keeping the city's property taxes afloat, right? Because the value of all the buildings is going up. Well, if that ever changes, all of a sudden we're underwater. So more houses, more people living in them. I've met several people who've moved back in with family, right? I know I'm a rent increase or 2 away from having to move in with friends, right? And if we could just build a substantial number of new houses, there are already people living in Medicine Hat who are saving down payments who could immediately move into them. There are people from all over the country looking for an affordable place to live. I know, I've met them, I've shaken their hands, who would keep moving here, right? And then they're going to want stuff. And then they're going to want local businesses. They're going to want amenities they had in the communities they came from. They're going to bring their own way of doing things. And that is going to give us new solutions for our problems, right? like I said, like we've got 3 people who've all come to Medicine Hat to start businesses, and now they want on council to help make it easier for businesses to work, right? And I support that. But for me, I can only see the housing piece because it's the one I'm most familiar with. And so to any property developers out there, if you're building residential, okay, as long as it meets code, my answer is yes. All right, get all your guys to vote for me. My answer is just yes. I don't even really care where you put it, as long as it's within like a block of a bus stop and within an hour's walk of a grocery store. Because like those of us who can't afford cars, or at least cars that aren't junkers, would happily take the bus to get our groceries if that's what we need to do, right? So as long as we can get where we need to go, and, you know, parking comes as a second thought to a guy like me. It's more about just having that affordable place to live, which then would get me paying property taxes, which would then help the city out, which would grow the tax base, which would get us through this period long term and not keep it going until the bad thing happens.
If Kaleb Orge was playing one of your fantasy games and you had a magic wand and you could wave it and fix one problem in Medicine Hat, what would that be?
Let's see here. Open Command Console // what cheat code would I use?
Oh, a cheat code. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Well, the one in SimCity, where your power plants provide infinite power, would probably be the easiest one. Mm-hmm. Solar panels right now are eating our power plants' lunch, because once they're installed, they can bid onto the grid at zero, like actually 0.00, because every cent they make goes toward paying them off, and then after they're paid off, everything is pure profit. Whereas there are more fuel and maintenance costs for maintaining a natural gas power plant. Now that said, natural gas is there for the days where the wind isn't blowing, the sun isn't shining the right way. It spins up quicker than some other kinds of power plant. It is essential for the power grid to operate, but it is more difficult to make a predictable and sustainable profit than it is to just constantly pump energy into the system and get what you get. So yeah, a power plant that could just bid onto the grid at zero and just take all the money would be great. But something realistic, like if I could pick any one policy, yeah, just for me, now I don't know 100% the veracity of this statistic, but I heard you need something like 3, 4, or 5%. What's the word? Vacancy rate. You need a 3, 4, 5% vacancy rate in a
healthy
city.
Market. For a healthy market.
Yeah, just so that people can actually move from one place to another and then create another vacancy that someone else can move into, right? Because people are wanting to get their kids closer to the school they want to go to, or they want to go to this job, or they've changed employment.
They have a choice.
Yeah, so that they have choice and that they can make a more efficient and financially viable choice for them, right? Mm-hmm. We don't have that right now. If there was one thing I could do, it would be to absolutely do the SimCity thing and just slam down a residential area that could just drop units in to maintain that 3 or 4%, right? Because then the market will sort itself out, right? People will move around, and that movement will help people out financially. It will help. It'll help move the market. It'll help adjust price. It'll do a lot of good things in the long term.
Kaleb Orge, candidate for Medicine Hat City Council, October 20th. Some interesting viewpoints on civic politics. I thank you for your time.
Well, thank you very much.